Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to deal with surveys, questionnaires, designed experiments, all of that. So it's 10.2 in your book is collecting data. Okay, so if we're collecting data, before you start, the most important thing that you can use here is your common sense. Most of the time when they're saying advantages, disadvantages, it's obvious stuff. Don't be looking too deep into it, okay? So the very first thing that I'm going to say is common sense once again prevails here. The more people you have in your survey, the more accurate it is. The more diverse your sample size is, the more accurate it is. Okay? So we'll deal with this, and on page 369, 370, and 371, it explains it quite well. But the very first thing I'm going to start off with is what's the word experiment? It's not administering drugs to in hospitals. That's not an experiment. Well, that is an experiment, but an experiment is absolutely anything, and it's explained here on page 371, where we're looking for an outcome. Okay, we're recording results. So maybe we're doing Daniel Chukwu is taking penalties, and he scores 10 out of 10. Well, that's an experiment there. Okay, we're doing a survey, that's an experiment. Questionnaire, that's an experiment. Okay, so we're looking to get information back. Yeah, we're counting and measuring or simply observing. Right, anybody that responds to questionnaire or survey is known as a respondent. Okay, so we'll start off with the first one. Surveys. Sorry, need to drag that down. Surveys. So the very first thing is an advantage or disadvantage. These are given on page 370 anyway. A survey is quite cheap. You just hand it out. High response rate. You always see them coming around to classes. Easy to fill out, so people respond pretty quickly. You can get a good few questions done in that. Systematic. Yeah, and tick box. It's quite easy. Yeah, so a large amount of data can be got from that. So they're all the positives that we can get. The negatives that we can get, and you got them in the box on page 370, is some people just see a survey and they just go tick, 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 tick. No, that's going to give inaccurate responses. Yeah, the other disadvantages is now. First of all, may I say that surveys come in many different ways. I could do a survey through observation. I could be looking at something. I could do a personal interview or telephone survey or a postal survey. Okay, so they all have different advantages, disadvantages. But if I'm doing an observation, it could be chance. If I'm doing a survey, for example, outside a cinema, and I ask people, "Do you like going to the movies?" Obviously, that's a biased survey. Um, if I'm doing a telephone one, it's a bit more expensive than if I'm doing an observation one. If I'm doing a postal survey, I'm not getting very good feedback. Obviously, people aren't going to send it back. People get lazy. You have to open it up and go through that. Okay. Now, questionnaires is a bigger one. As I said earlier, this is easy stuff. So this is really revision and junior cert stuff. Questionnaires. So what we're looking for, anybody that responds to questionnaires is a respondent, first of all. You have to just make sure your questions are accurate, okay? Like, so very few things we have to do in the beginning. They got to be short, concise, non-offensive. We never ask two questions at once. Never two questions at once. Two questions at once. So what do I mean by that? Do you like maths and science? Well, you might like maths, you might like science. Give all the answers. Yeah, so what age are you? 18 to 20, 20 to 22, 22 to 24. Well, what if I'm 16? Yeah, so that I'm not giving all the answers there. Be clear, that goes back to being concise. Some questions can be leading as well, so no leading questions. How would I would say, let's say, football manager who's under pressure. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, well, was under pressure. They haven't won many games recently. Do you think that he should be kept on as Man United question manager? That's a leading question. That's trying to influence the person. So all these things are any information that you get out there they're always manipulated questionnaires. That's how marketing teams work. Yeah, so that's the basics of it all there. Now, designed experiments, you just need to know the word for that. That could be anything from rolling a dice, flicking a coin, seeing penalty taken. Could be anything like that when we're recording that. Side effects of drugs. So vaccines is a great one. We're hearing about 95%, 90% accuracy with all these. That means that on these amount of patients, that's how often it worked. They would have to have. That's why it goes through the medical bureaus, that they can't have side effects above a certain percentage. I can't remember. It was like 1 in a million or something crazy like that. So they adhere to that, and their sample size has to be a certain amount. Control group is something that you haven't heard. So once again, the vaccine, to see that it works, we'll go with that is our example. So control group. If I'm using my group as, let's say, we've got Cal, Sonny, and Sean O'Shea were given the drug to pep them up a small bit in class. And you've got Paul, Evan, and Louis Lovett. Okay, so there are two groups. I give the drugs out to those. One drug does absolutely nothing. One peps them up. We want to see that there's not a placebo effect. Placebo effect means people get the drug, they think that they're going to do greater things, so they adapt their behaviour. So we want to see that we're controlling the response difference of the drug to the control group. So let's say we gave to Sonny's group and then we saw Paul's group, and we're going to see the differences. Maybe it'll be test scores. Yep. Okay, that's really, really, really simple stuff. The last thing that you need to know is an explanatory response. And a response variable. Okay, explanatory variable and response variable. So here's the difference. Anything that's controlled is the explanatory variable. The effect that you're seeing is the response. So let's say we go back to our group, what we given. The explanatory variable is me giving the drug to the group that I gave. Okay? The response is the effects of the drug. And that's it. That's all you need to know for this. What I want you to do for your homework is I want you to do question 1 to 10. And post it up to Teams. Thank you. Good work.